Welcome back to Wholesaling with Mike. Today's topic, the REIA meeting. REIA stands for Real Estate Investing Association, and real estate investment clubs are groups that meet locally and they allow investors and other professionals to network and learn. They're extremely useful for both the beginner and the expert investor. And a top real estate club can really be a great forum to network, learn about reputable contractors, brokers, realtors, lawyers, accountants. You can meet cash buyers and just a ton of other great people to know. Now, this module was initially meant to be a bonus module, and although we're in the middle of focusing on finding motivated sellers, I thought it was important to add this to the primary curriculum due to the time-sensitive nature of the topic. You see, you need to be at the very next REIA meeting, and ideally everyone after that. This will directly affect your business and money-making ability. And so rather than wait until a later module, I thought it best to pause our search for leads for just a moment, cover this topic, arm you with the proper tools for these meetings, and then resume our hunt for motivated sellers. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So the REIA meeting, first of all, where do you find it? Well, just try Google searching or go to meetup.com. Now, if there isn't one in your area, that's okay, but you should still be networking at professional events to grow your network and your business. I encourage you to look for other professional networking groups, such as your Chamber of Commerce, Toastmasters, or BNI, which stands for Business Networking International. They've got over 170,000 members worldwide. It's the largest business networking organization in the world. I think last year they generated, or their members generated, $6.5 billion. And the cool thing about BNI is there are local chapters, but each chapter allows only one person per occupation. So if you're in a BNI chapter, you'll be the only real estate investor there, with all the other members of the group feeding you leads. Okay, so while I started this module strictly for the REIA, start with the REIA if it's available, but use the principles taught here for any professional networking. More is better. The more groups you can be a part of is the better. But I will say this disclaimer, okay? It's better to be a regular at one group than to be a sometimer or the guy that shows up every now and then at many groups, at least initially. So next, I want you to dress to impress. There's no need to wear a three-piece suit. Business casual is usually fine. Personally, I would not do jeans, but all chapters are different. But for the first one, slacks, collared shirt, and a blazer are a good start. For ladies, again, business casual. The tie is optional. I'm typically not a tie fan, but bear in mind that I personally would prefer to be overdressed than to be underdressed. Get there early. It sounds so simple, but it is so important. As a matter of fact, you need to get in the habit of doing everything, you know, being this way everywhere you go. Get there early, okay? Rich people are early, period. Among just looking good, here's why. First, you get access to the host first to make an impression. Like once this room is slammed and everyone is looking for his or her attention, it's far more difficult. But even more importantly, and here's where it gets good, okay? People come to these meetings expecting to network. This is one of the few places where you can go up to a stranger and say hi, and it's expected, okay? So when you're the first one there, everyone who comes in will gradually move to start a chat with you, or you can initiate. But here's what happens, okay? Within the first 20 minutes or so, all of the arrivals will start to click up into little groups, usually groups of about 3, 4, or 5 people. So once 3 or 4 people are actively engaged in a conversation, they usually close off this circle, and it can be very difficult to jump in and introduce yourself. Usually, if you even make the approach, you end up standing on the outside, just awkwardly listening, kind of like nodding your head, or just maybe you find an opportunity to butt in, but it can come off as really awkward. Who knows what I'm talking about here? I know I can't be the only one. But even better than not being that guy or girl, you get to be the other guy. So check this out. When you see that other person standing on the outside of the circle, you get to be the one to invite them in or introduce them to someone else in the circle. This makes the outsider like you because you're inviting them in, and to the group, it makes you look like an unofficial leader. So always get there early, okay? The most value from these meetings, while it's great to learn, but the most value will come from networking. And we're going to dive deeper into that in the next few slides. Next, I want you to get uncomfortable. In a room of strangers, it's very, very easy to gravitate toward the people who resemble us in some way. I was guilty of this all the time. I mean, in fact, we usually have more to talk about because there are at least some, if not, even if they're superficial, there's similarities. So this is maybe okay at first, you know, and only natural. But for me, I noticed it becoming a pattern. You know, a lot of the similar folks that I was going up to were in the same financial situation that I was. I would go talk to people who were maybe younger, who were newer. And when I first started doing this, or when I first started noticing that I was doing this, I made a conscious decision to go and talk to people who did not look familiar. Meaning I'm a man, I'm relatively young compared to a lot of attendees. A lot of these people are investors, they're in their 50s and up. So I started talking to older people. I started talking to women. I started talking to people of different ethnicities first. So, people who didn't look the same. And it's made a huge difference. So I want to encourage you to really get out of your comfort zone, and I guarantee you that it will pay off. Next, you want to introduce yourself to the host, and when you do, you want to do it with enthusiasm. When I first met Lex Levinrad, who became one of my mentors later on, I had nothing, not even a business card. But I looked him up online before I went to my very first meeting, and I wrote him a letter. I barely knew anything about wholesaling. I had no money, but I told him I read about who he was. I wanted to be a wholesaler. I had no money or credit. These are all things I put in my letter, but I had work ethic and drive. I also said that I wanted to be a regular member of his club and learn all that I could. If I could learn by doing any services for him, like driving to a house and taking pictures, I'd be happy to do it, and free of charge, of course. Remember, everyone wants to get, but you need to think about what can you give? How is it beneficial for the other person to work with you? He always remembered that, and me afterwards. The first few meetings, he would say, "You're the one that wrote me that letter. What's your name again?" It was the start of something that would become a great apprenticeship and eventually a great business relationship. Next, take notes. Even if you gain just one piece of advice or one new tip, it's a win. Next, remain focused. Throughout these meetings, there will be sales pitches for various products or services. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you from purchasing any products, but know that these guys are professionals at selling, and each product will sound sexier than the last, okay? But as fancy as wholesaling lease options or private money lending or rehabbing or the new XYZ crazy system automatic done for you, whatever it is may be, just remember that you're a wholesaler. I want you flipping houses, and I want you to remain solely focused on this task until you have at least 6 liquid figures in your bank account. Commit to your attendance. Most of these meetings are only once a month. Make the time, make the arrangements, talk to your boss, hire the babysitter in advance, make this a priority. It is your livelihood. One missed meeting could be one missed interaction with the one buyer who would buy the one house from you for a $20,000 payday, or that one buyer who will buy 10 houses from you every year for the rest of your life. Can you really afford to miss these meetings? And finally, smile. Universal. Just smile. Have a good, positive attitude. Okay? So next we're going to talk about networking, and I'm going to reveal a few secrets to the game. Okay, here we are, networking. Now, close your eyes and think of someone who is an expert networker. Most people might picture this slick, smooth talking, guy, well dressed, moving through a crowd, schmoozing, handing out as many business cards as he can, right? This is not appropriate networking for a business meeting, and we need to get this idea out of your head as soon as possible. So again, networking is not handing out as many business cards as you can. I went to a seminar years ago and I still have these notes to this day, and it is so true. So please give me your full attention. Networking is the cultivating of mutually beneficial give and take win-win relationships. One thing I want to point out, in the last module, I know some of you are saying, Mike, you said to give my card to everyone I meet. This is true, young grasshopper, but that was for seller leads. In those scenarios, the people you're giving your card to are incentivized. You are playing a numbers game, and via your referral program, they can get paid money to bring you leads. Essentially, you're giving them an opportunity to make some extra cash for themselves. This is a very different situation. Here at professional networking, you're seeking cash buyers, lenders, potential business partners, and referrals, in addition to some leads you may find there, even though that's less likely, but you need to approach it with a completely different style and mentality. This new approach will serve you at any professional networking function. So again, we are looking for mutually beneficial give and take win-win relationships. All things equal, people will do business with and refer business to those that they know, like, and trust. So you've got to be relationship oriented. Remember, in a previous module, we talked about 6 degrees of separation. So when you meet one person, don't see them as an individual. See them as their sphere of influence, the hundreds of people that they know that they can potentially refer to you. So now it's game time. Game time, baby. First thing we want to do is arrive early. We already talked about the importance of this, okay? So at your first meeting, you don't know anyone there, Maybe you play cool, or maybe your heart's racing, palms sweating. But either way, it's going to be okay. Okay, so once we go through the scenario, I want you to close your eyes and visualize the whole exercise a few times. Okay, your brain cannot tell the difference between imagining something vividly and reality. So do it in your head, and the real thing will feel awesomely familiar when you get there. Olympic athletes, for example, would not dare attempt their events without first playing it in the mind. And there have been experiments done proving that the same areas of the brain fire when athletes visualize running a race as they did actually running the race. Okay? So you're at this meeting, and we're going to start with some visualization. Okay? So back to the meeting. You walk in, and you either the first one there or one of the very first few people there. Tongue twister, sorry. Since you don't know anyone, you can't count on seeing a familiar face or an introduction from a mutual acquaintance. Your goal should be to meet no more than 6 people to develop strong mutual give and take relationships with. Leaving your meeting with even one of these relationships formed is far more beneficial to you than handing out 200 business cards and simply walking out. Okay? Also, we want to do a head check before we walk in. So let's rewind a little bit. Close your eyes. You are just outside of the room. Okay? And we're going to do a head check and an attitude adjustment. What is your goal here? Okay? You need to remind yourself, I'm here to work. The work can be fun. The work can be enjoyable. But make no mistake, you're on a mission. You're there for a purpose. And the mission is to increase your inventory, meaning the names of quality people who can directly or even indirectly help you in your wholesaling business. Okay? Now, you're getting ready to walk into the room. Slow it down a little bit. Not awkwardly, because I can picture that, but move at a comfortable pace and smile. Feel free to make eye contact and give that polite smile. What you project outwardly, people will perceive and assume to be true. So project a level of confidence, no looking down. When you do speak, you want to speak loudly and project clearly. And a good exercise is to imagine, how an emperor might walk into a room full of his adoring subjects and take a moment to just survey his domain. Can you see that? All right. So next step, I want you to introduce yourself to someone new. The longer you spend trying to decide who, the more awkward it gets. So just pick someone, and preferably someone who doesn't look like you. And then just go. Remember, they expect it. This is a networking function. It's okay. Quick side note here, if you can identify someone who appears to be a leader, like, that person that's just the center of attention, they're leading a group, they have a certain aura about them, they're confident, other people show interest in them, they look for approval from them, they laugh at their jokes, that is a great person to target. In this case, you can kind of hang back and wait for them to excuse themselves from the current group, go to the restroom, join another group, grab a coffee or something, and then at that point you can walk up and introduce yourself to that person. You make gentle, non-threatening eye contact, you have a pleasant smile, and then you say the secret phrase. Are you ready for this? Hi, my name is Mike. Crazy stuff, right? Wow, look at that. So you want to get their name in return and remember your new friend's name. Okay? Now, what is the objection I hear most often? I'm terrible with names. This is an excuse, okay? Anyone can be good with names. But again, we're going to close eyes and go back into this situation. So I say, hey, my name is Mike. The person I'm introducing myself to says, I'm Nick. Pleasure to meet you, Nick. And you've got to remember, the sweetest sounding word to anyone in any language is their name. So again, that excuse, I'm not good with names, is just that. It's an excuse. You make yourself good with names. And here's how. After you say, pleasure to meet you, Nick, this is what I do. I study Nick's face and I take a mental photograph. Then I repeat the name in my head a few times. Nick, 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 Nick. Now you realize that your brain thinks in pictures. So you look for a distinctive feature on Nick. In this case, Nick has green eyes, okay? So you're going to make a word association with this distinctive feature. Nichols sounds like Nick. And then make a picture in your head as vividly as possible of Nichols pouring out of Nick's eyes. At this point, you know that you'll never forget his name again. It's embedded in your memory. Nick. Let's jump into our conversation with Nick. First off, what do you do? So, Nick, what brings you here tonight? What line of work you in? I'm a general contractor. How about yourself? And then you can deliver your elevator pitch. I'm a wholesaler. I find discounted single-family homes for investors throughout South Florida with an emphasis in Palm Beach County. Say briefly what you do and include how it benefits people who do business with you. But do not try to pitch anything here, okay? There's about a 90% chance that Nick really doesn't give a crap about what you do, and that's cool. Why? Because we want to talk 99% about the other person. This works in your favor. The fact that Nick doesn't care works in your favor because because here is where you want to use your time to ask Nick about what he does. People absolutely love to talk about themselves, especially in these type of meetings. So let them. You tilt the scale almost exclusively in Nick's favor. Don't even worry about going back and forth. So you're going to be asking open-ended, feel-good questions, okay? And these are questions that can't be answered with a yes or no statement. Get people talking and make them feel good. People will form good memories and associate those good feelings with you. Have you ever been in a situation, it's just so interesting that the people we find the most interesting are the people who seem the most interested in us. So, what are some of these feel-good questions to ask? Okay, here are a few samples. Again, I picked this up from a seminar years ago, and I use these things to this day. Number one, how did you get started in XYZ business? Number two, what's the best part about what you do? Three, what makes you different from your competition? Notice you're giving people an opportunity to brag about themselves. What person doesn't love that? Okay. Number four, what advice would you give to someone starting out in the business? Number five, what significant changes have you seen in your business over the last few years? Number six, what do you see as the up and coming trends in your field? Seven, the funniest thing you've seen in your business. This is one I like a lot. Eight, what are the most effective ways you found to promote your business? And number nine, we use the FORM method. Okay, and FORM simply stands for F for family, O for occupation, R for recreation, and M for message. Do they stand for something like a charitable cause or any passions or organizations? If you pick a topic from any of those, from those subjects, it's going to turn into a feel-good question. So now, of course, you're not going to ask someone 9 questions in a row, but you can pick 2 of these and start a very good, very engaging conversation. So let's continue with Nick. Again, we're going to use 2 or 3 feel-good questions. So, Nick, you're a general contractor, huh? Wow, I have a good friend that's a GC and he loves it. Man, how'd you get involved in that anyway? Well, my dad was a builder and I've been rehabbing since I was a kid. So when it came time for school, it was natural for me to move in that direction and I do love it. Business was slow 2 years ago, but it's starting to pick back up. And suddenly, you see an opening for, bang, an extender. In this case, we'll use the echo technique. The echo technique is where you repeat the end of what the person speaking to you just said with a questioning tone. Now, this is a little bit funny, but you'd be surprised at how well this works. So the last thing Nick said to me, or to you, or whoever it was, uh, business was slow 2 years ago, but it's starting to pick back up. And then you say, picking back up? And then Nick will say, yes, since the economic recovery, banks are lending again, and we've also gotten some government money flowing our way. Government money flowing your way? And then Nick will continue. Yeah, there's a huge neighborhood revitalization program that they're pushing all through downtown. We're responsible for restoring about 30 homes in the next year. Another version of an extender is the tell me more. So Nick says something, oh, tell me more. And you don't have to be this amazing conversationalist. Just be authentically curious, okay? And then it's time to pop the question, okay? I'm slowing down because this is important. Well, Nick, it sounds like you really know your stuff. Tell me, and here it is. How can I know if someone I'm speaking to would be a good prospect for you? Then Nick might say, well, actually, if you know any investors who could use a repair estimate or an inspection report, that would be great. Right here, you separate yourself from 99% of people. Everyone wants to talk about what they need and offer the services that they provide. And here you are thinking about what you can give. Again, are you seeing this topic come up over and over? How can you help them? Remember, you always want to be serving others. So again, how can I know if someone I'm speaking to would be a good prospect for you? Next steps. So now that Nick's answered your question, you ask the next big question. Hey Nick, do you by chance have a card? And Nick will give you his card. And don't offer yours. Don't offer it. But if asked, you can feel free to give it to him. Although in all honesty, it's a courtesy and most likely it'll end up in the trash, okay? So you do not offer yours. Afterwards, you find a new prospect and you repeat this whole introductory process 2 or 3 more times. So introduce yourself to someone new, preferably again with that same aura of leadership about them, and repeat. Later, I want you to stop back in and check in on one of the first, people that you spoke to that night, such as Nick. Be sure to remember their name because there's a good chance that they won't remember yours. So now, not only are you going to stand out, but they feel almost guilty for not knowing your name. They obviously want to know your name, and now they want to make a favorable impression. Okay? So now you're ready for a very slick move. All right? This is some good stuff, okay? Now it's time to play the role of the big dog, all right? You're the person to know. So you do this in two ways. One, by pulling a lost soul into an existing conversation. We talked about this in the beginning. That awkward guy who's standing on the outside or not talking to anyone. Pull them in and introduce them to your current group. Or number two, you can introduce two of the contacts that you made earlier in the night. Introduce them to each other, okay? If you can, do it in a way that provides value to each. Making good quality introductions is so important, and you can suggest ways that they might be able to provide business for one another and vice versa, okay? So use the answer from the ultimate question that we looked at on the last screen to let the other person know how they can know if someone is a good prospect for Nick, for example. So you walk over. Hey, Nick, you having a good time? Hey, Nick, you have a second? I'd like to introduce you to Lisa. Lisa here is a realtor in Broward County. Nick is a general contractor. He was actually just telling me that anyone who needs a repair estimate on a potential investment property could probably benefit from his services. And Nick, I'm sure you meet all types of people in your line of work. If you know anyone looking for luxury homes along the intercoastal, Lisa specializes there. She's actually won an award for being in the top 10% of realtors in Broward County like the last 3 years in a row. You show sincere interest and it makes them desire to help you as well. And then, once they're talking, Nick and Lisa, politely excuse yourself and leave them talking. And check this out, 99% of the time, they're going to start talking about you. So after the meeting is over and you've collected your business cards, send your new contacts an email. Do this as soon as possible. You can have a template saved on your computer, basically saying, "Nice to meet you. I look forward to being able to work with you together, or refer, business someday." And then add a personal note about something you talked about or a reminder from the meeting. Okay, so you always want to follow up. And don't dwell on this and don't procrastinate it. It should not take you more than 5 minutes, okay? So my email would look like this. Hey Nick, this is Mike Hill. We met at XYZ meeting on Monday. Just wanted to let you know it was a pleasure to meet you and I hope to stay in touch. I may know of a few folks looking for some repair estimates on the properties I send them, so I'll be sure to pass along your information. Also, are you planning on attending next month's meeting? I look forward to catching up with or working with you in the future. Thanks, Mike. And then you can add your signature below your name, which lists your website and your contact information. Okay? So, some closing thoughts. Just go. Go this time, not next time. There's always that temptation. I'll go to the next meeting. Just go. Go to the next meeting. Be early. Don't judge and never judge, especially that lost soul, that person that just seems like they don't belong. They could be, the most affluent person in the room. You just never know. Or they might know someone who knows someone that can help you out in the future. And it's good to just not be judgmental about people. You never know, okay? Get uncomfortable, get out of your comfort zone, talk to everyone, and follow up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. You're going to meet some of the best, you're going to meet some amazing people because they're just great people, and you're going to meet amazing people for your business. They're direct correlations to people who network and income. It's a fact, it's proven. So I hope you use these techniques. Go out there, try them out, practice. You don't have to do this perfectly. Maybe you don't meet 2 people the first time or 3 people. Maybe you just meet 1 person. That's okay. We're looking for progress. The next meeting you may meet 2 people and you get better and better and better. So please revisit this module. In the next one, we're going to get back to looking at seller leads, but this is so important. Make it to the next REIA meeting. Again, review this stuff, and I know it will help you. Okay, that's it from me, and I will see you in, what are we doing next? Searching for more seller leads. Thanks.